A few months ago, I was on a call with a founder who said something I hear more often than you'd expect. He told me the app was working, they had users, and nothing was obviously broken. But every time they tried to build something new, it turned into a mess. He gave me an example. A small feature that should have taken a day ended up taking almost 2 weeks. Not because it was complex, but because every change caused unexpected issues somewhere else in the system. Then he asked me, we moved fast in the beginning. That was the right thing to do, right? And the answer is yes, but only for a while. I'm Uka from Calda. We've worked on over 100 apps, and I've seen this exact situation play out again and again. It usually doesn't happen to teams that are struggling early on. It happens to teams that did everything right. They moved fast, shipped early, and got real users. From the outside, it looks like progress, but internally, things start to feel different. A big part of the problem comes from how we think about speed. In startups, speed is treated as a clear advantage. The faster you move, the better your chances. And early on, that mindset works. It helps you validate ideas, get feedback, and avoid wasting time building something nobody wants. Because over time, the way you move fast starts shaping how your product is built underneath. And that structure eventually matters more than the speed itself. If this already sounds familiar, you can book a quick call with us through the link in the description. When we looked deeper into that founder's product, nothing obvious was broken. Users could navigate the app, payments worked, data was handled correctly, everything looked stable. But once we examined how things were built, a pattern started to appear. Every feature had been added exactly when it was needed. No unnecessary planning, no over-engineering, just solving the problem in front of them and moving forward. Which is exactly what you should do early on. But over time, that approach creates a product that works on the surface without having a strong system underneath. We saw something very similar with a team building a marketplace. At the beginning, it was simple. Users signed up, created listings, and interacted. Then they added messaging, then payments, then different roles, then admin tools. Each step made sense. Each feature solved a real need, but they never really stopped to rethink how everything should fit together as a system. So over time, different parts of the app became tightly connected in the ways that were not intentional. Eventually, they reached a point where even small changes required touching multiple areas of the product. Not because the feature was complex, but because the system had become fragile. This is where things start to break, and it rarely looks dramatic. There's no crash, no major failure. Instead, it shows up as friction. Features take longer than they used to. Small changes feel risky. Bugs take more time to understand and fix. And you start hearing subtle things from the team. Let me double check this. I don't want to touch that part right now. This might break something else. That hesitation is the real signal. Because it means the team no longer fully trusts how the system behaves. And when that trust is gone, speed disappears with it. If you break it down, the cause is usually consistent. First, the product was built feature by feature without a clear system underneath. Each decision made sense on its own, but there was no strong structure connecting everything together. Second, the data model evolved over time. It worked perfectly in the beginning, but as new features were added, relationships became more complex and harder to manage. And third, important decisions were delayed. Not because the team ignored them, but because they were focused on the moving fast. Questions about scalability, permissions, and how different parts should interact were pushed into the future. Eventually, that future arrives. And by then, those decisions are much harder to change. This is where many teams go in the wrong direction. They feel the slowdown and their instinct is to push harder, move faster, ship more. Try to overcome the friction with effort. But the issue is not the effort. It's that the way they're building has not evolved with the product. What worked in the early days, moving quickly and solving problems as they appear, is exactly what starts creating problems later if it never changes. Because speed in the beginning is about learning. Later, speed depends on clarity and structure. And if you don't make that shift, you don't stay fast. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability is what slows teams down the most. If you want to see how we approach this in real projects, you can check out our website through the link in the description. The teams that handle this well do not suddenly slow everything down. From the outside, they still look fast. They're still shipping, still iterating, still making progress. But internally, they operate differently. They start investing in structure. They revisit earlier decisions and adjust them based on how the product has evolved. They simplify how features connect and define clearer boundaries between different parts of the system. They make changes that users never see directly, but that make the product significantly easier to build on. And that's what allows them to keep moving fast. Because the real speed is not about how quickly you can write code. It's about how confidently you can change it. If this stage is ignored, the problem does not stay at the same level. What actually happens is that the cost of making even simple changes starts to rise in a very predictable way. At first, you notice that things take slightly longer than they used to. A feature that would have taken a day now takes 2 or 3, not because it's more complex, but because you have to think through how it might affect other parts of the system before you touch anything. Then it gets to a point where every change requires context. You cannot just implement something in isolation anymore. You need to understand how data flows through the system, which parts depend on each other, and what might break if something behaves differently than expected. Eventually, you reach a stage where the difficulty is no longer in building the feature itself, but in navigating everything around it. At that point, even small ideas start to feel expensive. And once that happens, teams naturally begin avoiding changes. Not because they lack ideas, but because the cost of implementing them is no longer clear or predictable. That is when progress slows down in a way that it's hard to reverse. When a team reaches this stage, there are usually only 2 realistic options. The first is to continue building on top of the existing system and accept that development will be slower, less predictable, and increasingly dependent on workarounds. The second is to step back and start restructuring parts of the product. What makes this difficult is that restructuring is not a clean, isolated task. You're not fixing one component or rewriting one feature. You're revisiting decisions that affect multiple parts of the system at the same time. This is why teams often delay it. Not because they don't see the problem, but because they understand that addressing it properly requires time, focus, and willingness to temporarily slow down. The teams that handle this well do not treat it as a full reset, and they do not try to fix everything at once. Instead, they start by identifying the parts of the system that create the most friction and focus on those first. They simplify how data is structured. They reduce unnecessary dependencies between features. They introduce clearer boundaries so that changes in one area do not affect everything else. This work is not visible to users, but it changes how the team experiences the product. Features become easier to reason about. Changes become more predictable, and most importantly, the team regains confidence in how the system behaves. That confidence is what allows them to move quickly again. The important shift here is not technical, it's mental. In the early stages, speed comes from ignoring structure and focusing only on what needs to be built next. At a certain point, that approach stops working. From that moment on, speed comes from having a system that makes change easy instead of risky. If you continue applying the early stage mindset too long, you do not stay fast. You just make future work harder. So the goal is not to choose between speed and structure. The goal is to understand when one needs to take priority over the other. When you're exploring ideas, speed matters more. When you're defining how your product works underneath, structure matters more. Some decisions can be changed later without much impact. Others quietly become part of the foundation. Recognizing the difference early is what allows teams to keep moving without running into these issues later. If you're building something right now, the real question is not just how fast you're moving, it's whether your product can actually support that speed. Because when things start feeling harder than they should, that is not random, it's a signal. And the earlier you act on it, the easier it is to fix. If this felt familiar, drop a comment and let me know what stage you're at. I read all of them and I'm happy to share thoughts on your situation. And if you want more breakdowns like this on how to actually build and scale products without hitting these walls, make sure to follow and subscribe. See you in the next one.